Hello, my name is Alan Jones, and I welcome you to another life story coming to you from Life Stories Worldwide. We bring you stories from the UK and other countries, and these stories go out across the world. We bring you stories of people going through all types of challenges, struggles in life, and how they dealt with them, and how those lives have been transformed. We are live on StreamYard, Facebook, YouTube. You can also watch us on our website, Lifestoriesworldwide.com. That's probably one of the easiest places to watch. Our guest today comes from the Rhondda Valley in South Wales. His name is Chris Jones. Chris was a former Welsh rugby player, and he was known for his violent conduct on and off the pitch. And one day he ended up in a police cell, and something happened, and his life was changed. So we welcome you, Chris, to share your story on Life Stories. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, nice to meet you, Alan. Obviously, I've been asked to tell you a little bit about my life and how I became a Christian. And I want to say right at the start that please don't expect any highfalutin sermons or anything. I'm a rugby coach, not a preacher or a pastor. And also I want to say that when I go on about my past, I'm not here to glorify violence in any shape or form. Lots of things I've done that I'm ashamed of and I won't talk about. But the reason that I do say my story is that I believe that God changed my life. And if he can change me, he can change anyone. And finally, I would also want to say right at the start, and I'm not here to Bible bash anyone either. Whoever's listening to this has to make up their own mind about what happened. But I believe with all my heart that God changed my life 34 years ago. And this is the story, really. I'm a Rhondda Valley boy. I'm a proud Welshman, but I come from the Rhondda Valleys. And people tend to think of Wales as the valleys, but it's only a small part of Wales, sort of about 30 miles up from Cardiff, the capital. And the Rhondda Valley is one of the central valleys. It's a place where all the coal mines were years ago. And growing up in the valleys, growing up in the Rhondda back in the 60s, the coal mines were still going. They've all closed now. But back in the 60s, still some of the coal mines were open. And it was a tough community to grow up in. I suppose I learned early on that to gain respect in the Rhondda in those days, you had to be good at three things: either playing rugby, or fighting, or drinking lots of alcohol. I was never much good at the third one, but I wasn't bad at the first two. Started playing rugby when I was 11 years of age, and I found that I loved the game and I was quite good at playing it, and I was quite a successful schoolboy rugby player. I managed to captain my Valley team and captain East Wales, and I managed to get into the Wales under 15 squad back in those days, and then later got into the Wales under 19 squad for 2 years on the run. And people said that if I kept working hard and playing like I was, that maybe one day I'd play for Wales, which is the sort of ambition of every young Welsh rugby player. But I had a major problem. And the problem was that I absolutely hated losing. And any sort of competitive sportsman listening to this talk will probably say, well, we hate losing as well. And, that the whole idea is to win in sport. But I would do anything to win. Kick, punch, gouge, stamp on someone's head, whatever it took to go out and win the game, I would do. And rugby back in the valleys in those days was a much more violent game than it is today. It's a tough game still today, and it's probably a more brutal game because the guys are professionals. We weren't professionals years ago. and they're big men, and the collisions are really big today. But back years ago, when there was no television cameras at the grounds, when there were no people there with mobile phones taking photos and film of what was going on, you literally could get away with mayhem. And sadly, my approach to the game got me into trouble with referees. And like I said as well, it was a violent game all over South Wales, particularly in the valleys in those days. And there were lots of tough guys playing. But I seemed to cross the line, what was acceptable more often than not. And then I got into trouble in schoolboy rugby, got sent off, got into trouble in youth rugby, colt rugby, and then going into senior rugby, I sort of had gained this reputation as a tough guy, I suppose. And what became more important to me really was to live up to the image of being a tough guy and outdo what I'd done last time. Obviously, the referees, when they did catch me creating havoc, they'd send me off. And the sendings off would accumulate the bans. So you might be banned for 2 weeks for the first offence. And then if you got sent off again, it would be 4 weeks. And sent off again, you'd be 8 weeks. And I got to the point where I had a 6-month ban, right, playing for my hometown club, Treorchy. And we used to play on a Boxing Day, which was an appropriate term for the games we used to play against our local rivals, a village a mile up the road called Turbot. And in this particular game, my brother Clive had who was playing on loan, if you like, from university, had his head stamped on. Typical Valleys rugby, 12 stitches in his head. I went after the guy who had stamped on his head, and I went to hit him. The referee then tried to stop me, blew his whistle, and said, right, he was going to send me off. And I refused to go off. And then he wanted to know my name, and I refused to give him my name. And in the end, I ended up hitting him or pushing him. I'd like to say it was a push, but it was probably a hit punch. And anyway, I got sent off. And when the Welsh Rugby Union heard about it, they banned me for 6 months. Then I came back to play. After the 6th month ban, it meant I couldn't play rugby for anyone for 6 months. I came back and we played a handful of games for my club, Treorchy, and then we were drawn against Cardiff, the glamour club of Welsh rugby, one of the greatest rugby clubs in the whole world. We were drawn against Cardiff in the Welsh Cup up in Treorchy. And we really thought that we could beat them. We had a chance of beating them, even though they were the Man United or the Manchester City or Liverpool of Welsh rugby. We thought that we could beat them. We definitely thought we could beat them up on our home ground. And the game was a violent game, and 4 of us got sent off, which was unheard of in Welsh rugby. But because I was just coming back from a 6-month ban, the Welsh Rugby Union decided to ban me for life. And my home club banned me for 5 years. And so I was banned, couldn't play the game. To my mates, to my friends, I put on an image of I don't care and lived up again to the tough guy reputation. But deep down, I was heartbroken because I loved the game. I loved playing rugby, like a lot of the boys in Wales. And I was out of the game for 18 months. And then I met someone from the Welsh Rugby Union who'd asked how I was getting on. And I told him that I was banned, still banned 18 months later. He said, well, you've been banned longer than anyone else. Write a letter of appeal in, and we'll allow you back to play, I'm sure. So I told him that I was a good boy and I wouldn't be violent anymore. And in fairness to the Welsh Rugby Union, they allowed me back to play. But again, I only played a handful of games and I was in trouble again. and I badly injured an opposing player. Actually put him in hospital and knocked him out and put him in hospital. And there was a threat of legal action against me. The Welsh Rugby Union stepped in and felt that the only way they could top the last life ban was to ban me for life again. So I was banned for life a second time. As far as I know, no other rugby player in the world has been banned for life twice, as far as I know. And I say that if there's rugby in heaven, I'll probably be banned. But being banned from rugby meant I could still coach rugby. And my brother Clive was home from university, and he started coaching Treorchy, our home team. And then he asked me to help him coach, and that's how I got into coaching. And then after a couple of years coaching Treorchy, we were given the opportunity to coach down in Pontypridd, one of the big clubs of Welsh rugby. And I had a great time. A great time coaching down in Pontypridd, a great rugby club. And we introduced the likes of Neil Jenkins and Dale McIntosh and people like that, who are sort of legends in the game in Wales, into senior rugby. But I did used to think to myself at that time, there's got to be more to life than this. I love rugby, I love playing, I love coaching, but is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And I thought about it, and I just thought, do you know what? There isn't any meaning or reason really for life. It's just to go out and have as good a time as possible. We taught in schools that survival of the fittest, and so that's the way I lived my life. And if I wasn't coaching rugby, obviously I couldn't play. But if I wasn't coaching rugby, then I would be out drinking with my friends. Sort of lived a life where I might go out on a Friday and not come back until Monday to go back to work. And when I did come home, I was married. I was married at a young age, and I had 3 small children. But when I did come home, there would be terrible, terrible rows in the house. I might kick the front door in or smash windows in the back to get in. And there were terrible, terrible rows. And it was a lifestyle that we lived that was that I thought was great at the time. But there were also times when I was really unhappy and wanted a change. And I just couldn't think of a way of changing. I couldn't think I might, try and be good for a couple of days in a week, and then the weekend would come and the rugby games would come, and then I would be back out, and it was like an addiction. It wasn't an addiction to booze or to drugs, although I got involved in the drug scene, not with any heavy drugs, but things like marijuana and speed and psychedelics. But it wasn't an addiction to them. It was an addiction to a lifestyle. And anyway, this carried on until August the 18th of 1990. And it was a jazz festival up in one of the mid-Wales towns in Brecon. Don't think I'd ever listened to a jazz record in my life. But when we started wrestling, we fell into a kitchen, and there were boots and punches coming in from all over the place. And then I got arrested. So I was taken down to the police cells, thought it was all a big joke. And on Sunday, this was on a Saturday. On Sunday, there were 2 CID detectives brought in to interview me. The police had taken my clothes off me because they were covered in blood. And I couldn't understand where the blood came from. And they said that there were 7 uniformed policemen willing to testify I was kicking this man's head in on the floor and that I stabbed him. And if I could have, I probably would have. I was known as a guy who carried an axe around in his kit bag at times, and so I would have done that, but I didn't, and I couldn't understand where the blood had come from that was on my clothes. But I also knew that none of my friends had seen what had happened, exactly what had happened, until I'd been arrested. I was allowed a phone call home to my wife, and as you can imagine, she wasn't happy, but we were used to living that type of lifestyle. And she came up to Brecon and brought my clothes up, my blazer and trousers, to appear in court next day. But the thing that really got to me was that she said that my children were asking when Daddy was coming home again.